Hello, welcome to 10 at 10. My name is Michael Ramage. I'm the director of the Cyber Education and Research Center here at Murray State University, and welcome back to 10 at 10. 10 at 10 is brought to you through a partnership between Murray State University, Grow West, the Technology Council of West Kentucky, KY Innovation, and local partner Sprocket Innovation in Paducah, and the Kentucky Innovation Station in Madisonville. Welcome back to episode 224. It's hard to believe we've been doing them that long, but this is an even number episode. So we are talking the news of the last few days, weeks. Here's what's going on in the world of news. And I always like sharing because there's always so many different and interesting things that to me are that are going on. So first, this is a research that has come out. These are talking about cyber threats, fraud, regulatory hurdles, operational inefficiencies, according to research from FIS and Oxford Economics. I guess the headline that you can see there is that cyber threats are now a daily reality for 1 in 3 businesses. Honestly, it might be even more than that, but they just don't know it. That would be my guess. Businesses are losing out on an average of $98.5 million a year as a consequence of cyber threats, fraud, regulatory hurdles, operational efficiencies, all those things. They're losing out on nearly $100 million a year. Yes, I realize that you may not do $100 million a year in revenue, so that may not apply to you. I think the point to take away from this is that because of all of these things going on, you are likely losing out on revenue or on business that you could have otherwise. According to the study, there's a lot more that's happening. 88% of respondents identified cyber threats in their network, 79% identified fraud, 65% identified regulatory complexities that make it hard for them to do business. Yes, it's happening, and you're going to have to keep up with that. I actually know someone in the banking industry that this is every day they have customers, hey, this is happening. I got this email. How can you help me? It's happening a lot. To that point, there was the 10th annual RSM U.S. Middle Market Business Index Special Report, Cybersecurity 2025. That's a mouthful. And it said that most organizations, that's not true. Nearly 1 in 5 organizations that responded to the survey experienced a data breach last year, despite the fact that they were most confident in their security measures that they've been. Our security measures are getting better. The bad guys are getting better. We have to be careful of what's going on. They say that that total number of breaches have fallen from 2024 to 2025. 1 in 5 is actually not a bad number. That's a pretty good number. Said larger companies, 50 million to $1 billion in revenue, are twice as likely as smaller companies to suffer a breach in the past year. Things are moving in the right direction because you're listening and taking the steps necessary to protect you and your organization. But you can't stop there because we have to continue upgrading our defenses because the bad guy is. Now, the good news of this study is that 91% of respondents expect the company's cybersecurity budget to increase in the coming year. We have to keep that up. And, it's not just because it's self-serving to me, being an educator of cybersecurity, it's necessary because the bad guy is getting better too. And I actually really like this article. This comes from Manufacturing Focus, but it talks about building cyber resilience into supply chains. And if you notice down here, let me scroll down a little bit so you can see it. It talks about the shift from cybersecurity to cyber resilience. It's changing the mindset. There's been a word, a phrase that I've heard for years: assume breach. And when you're talking zero trust, we assume a breach. Cyber resiliency assumes that attacks will happen. It focuses on the detection, the containment, the continuity, and the recovery. So resilience is, how do I defend the attack and bounce back? That's cyber resiliency. And frankly, these statistics I just shared tell me that we need to be thinking about cyber resiliency and how do we build that in. Now, what that also means is that it can't just be us. We buy supplies from vendors that may be physical materials, that may be computers, that could be software, that could be SaaS, software as a service, that could be infrastructure as a service. All of these organizations have to build that in as well. So as we're thinking through our security posture as an organization, the goal would be to build in that resiliency into your organization, to your network, into your infrastructure, by thinking through, how do we handle if this vendor went down, what do we do? If that service went down, what do we do? If we had a cyber attack in our manufacturing facility, what do we do? How do we respond? How do we plan? How do we continue to operate if that were to happen? All of those things are very good. I use this as an example. DeepSeek is a new AI tool. It is Chinese based, but it's similar to ChatGPT. And frankly, there's a fight. Who's better, ChatGPT, Gemini, some of the American versions, or DeepSeek? DeepSeek's pretty good. But it got hacked. And so a lot of the data that was being used by DeepSeek was stolen and shared on the dark web. So here's the problem with that. If you're not listening, meaning you're not hearing the regulators, the security people like myself that are saying, be careful what data you're putting online, and you put on sensitive or confidential information from your organization onto DeepSeek, now it's on the dark web, or potentially on the dark web. And this is about DeepSeek, but this is going to be true for any AI tool that we're using. I just talked about resiliency in our supply chain. Well, if we're using a ChatGPT, DeepSeek, Gemini type service, Copilot, we need to make sure that we're following the best practices to ensure that we have the security built into that. Just something to think about. Perhaps my favorite article of the day. ChatGPT users are complaining that ChatGPT, the bots, are too positive. I mean, we'll complain about everything. We're complaining that the responses in ChatGPT are too positive. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Can they be too positive? Yes. If you're writing something, are you that positive? Probably not. And it talks about why they're doing that. They're buttering you up. People like a positive response more than a negative response. I mean, there's a lot of reasons for it, but it just makes me laugh that there's actually an article complaining about ChatGPT being too positive in a world where everything feels like it's negative. And since I have the time, I don't really have the time, but let me touch on this just quickly. Samsung Galaxy password warning for millions. Act now, what to do. Essentially, if you're using their password manager or using some sort of password manager on a Galaxy phone, or Samsung phone rather, and you copy it to the notes before you put it into somewhere, those notes pages have been compromised. So if you're using one of those, make sure that you change your password to protect yourself and what information you have. All right. I sped through a lot of that. Thank you for your time. I hope you found this interesting. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'll see you next week back here on 10 at 10. Thank you. Bye.